The split that you used to win that world championship title, what was it specifically?
5-day split, and it's basically a take on push-pull legs, and then the 4th and 5th session is another push session, and then it's a posterior chain session. So it's back, glutes, hamstrings, calves. 2 rest days taken in that, but sometimes I'll have 3. So it's not, I have to do one body part or one session on a certain day of the week. I'll just do it in an order, and when it falls, it falls. But yeah, so chest focused push, followed by a back with biceps, and then followed by a leg session, then usually a rest day, then a shoulder focused push session, but I'll make sure that I do a little bit more upper chest, particularly for me, because that's kind of where I felt I needed to try and add a little bit more muscle. And then it would be areas that I'm targeting on my back, so focusing on rear delts, lower lats, along with the kind of the extra hamstring and glute work, and then obviously calves again, because they're always a point to work on.
So basically you're hitting everything twice a week, pretty much. The quads.
The only thing, I think quads are the only things that don't get twice, but I just make sure that when I do legs, it's a quad focused leg session. And when I'm training my quads on that day, I just make sure that I kind of absolutely annihilate them. They take longer to recover anyway. So for me, that works based on my weak points and the areas that I was trying to bring up.
You mentioned the chest day. You said compound, isolation, compound, and then you'll go into triceps?
I would then do maybe a little bit of shoulder work. So I'd do some delt work as well, and then triceps. So at the moment, I've also had like weighted chest dips. So that's something that I've put in. It's another pressing movement. That's kind of my lower chest exercise, but it also obviously is quite heavily uses the triceps as well. So obviously there's some overlap. So your triceps will be quite fatigued by the time you get to the isolation work at the end. But I mainly target them through the pressing movements as well.
So that's after the little bit of shoulder work that you do, then you'll hit the dips, and then you'll do the isolation triceps usually?
I usually do them just before. So I'll do, on that chest day, I'll do with chains sort of around my neck just to make sure that it's pulling me forward a bit and it looks cool. The main thing is obviously it helps me lean forward, and then I'm trying to really drive through my chest and keeping my elbows in as well. That will target lower chest, that will target triceps. And then I'll do a little bit of delt isolation work. So lateral raises with either a cable or some dumbbells, but all quite strict form, and then go into tricep kind of isolation stuff with the cables.
So with the dips, you do that once a week usually?
So I do once a week with the chains around my neck, leaning right forward, and then I'll do it on the delts day, but more upright without any weights. But I'll do that at the end of the workout as like a finisher. That'll be my last exercise on that day, but it's more upright, and that's more just to kind of burn the triceps out at the end.
That's that gymnast background, man. I know you love those dips, right?
We used to do sets of 50 dips when we were like 12 years old. So we'd do those at the end of a session. After a 4-hour training session, we'd be doing dips and pull-ups all day long and climbing up and down ropes and things. So, and with the chest dips, so the ones with the chains, I've dropped it down to 1 set. It'll be a triple drop set. So I'll start with the 2 chains on. I'll do that till failure, and then I'll hop off. I'll take a chain off and I'll go back up, and I'll probably get 6, 7, 8 more reps, and then I'll take the chains off again, and then just do it with body weight to complete failure. And that 1 set I get more from than doing 2 or 3 just straight sets with that exercise.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So you've tweaked that in that way. So that's your chest day. That's your first push day. Then with the isolation tricep exercises, are you doing like just cable stuff at the end there?
Yeah, so it's pretty much just cable. And I think that's something that obviously I've looked at a lot of what people have kind of putting out in terms of stability, looking at making sure that it's all aligned and you're kind of hitting the triceps from different angles. By that point, they've done sort of a lot of pressing movements. They've done their heavier work. So it's just kind of finishing them off. I'll vary different ways. I've got, like the long straps where you kind of put your hands in, and I'll do those. Generally, I'll do an overhead movement after that. So really sort of stretch them out, target kind of that long head. And it's just making sure that when I do that, I'm really allowing it to stretch in kind of the lengthened position and then squeezing through the contraction all the way through the rep. I'll do that to kind of finish off. I'll do a couple of sets, 2 or 3 sets even. The isolation type work, I just find obviously a little bit more volume. You can do that, you can get away with that, and I find it just works a little bit better. But they're still hard sets and really kind of pushing it to the point where there's not another rep in the tank.
Are you changing the loads with the isolation stuff? Sometimes you'll do a straight set, sometimes drop sets, depends, I guess, right?
Generally, it's just straight sets with that stuff. With the cable stack, obviously, one change is quite significant for me. I mean, I can squeeze out, say, 12 reps with a certain weight, but if I put it up 1, one, I can only get 5 or 6. If I put it down
Right.
one, I can only get, I can get 20. So I've got a weight that I'll use. By that point, you might have pushed it a little bit harder in the dip set. You might have had to change the order around. You might just be a little bit more fatigued by that point. So I don't worry too much about progressing that as a movement. I just kind of use it to really finish them off at the end of the session. But I'll kind of prioritize what I'm lifting and like the strength aspect towards the start of the session. And then as I go through, there's certain exercises that I'm just doing that to try and make sure that I'm really pushing, say, like the triceps to kind of complete muscular failure at the end, so that I feel like they've worked hard.
Okay. And the pull day, that's just pulling. So there's no legs involved in that second day. What's involved there specifically? Just back and biceps?
Yeah, it's just back and biceps, because obviously back, you've got so many different parts of your back that you're trying to sort of develop and focus. So for me, that's my full back day, and I give it a lot of attention. And then biceps, I do 2 exercises at the end just to finish it off. And then I'll do targeted areas of my back that I'm trying to bring up on the second back day in the week.
For those listening, biceps are like your strong point, right? Like that's kind of what you're known for in a way. You're like, your biceps are crazy, right? So they're very developed, and there's a genetic component there that influences that, of course. But that's also why you just tackle them on at the end of a pull day and you don't even worry about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. They're already like half cooked by that point anyway. And I think my biggest challenge when I transitioned from gymnastics to bodybuilding, was trying to make sure that my biceps weren't taking over. So when I was doing any kind of pull downs and things like that, for me, it was a challenge to stop me just pulling through my arms. And that's why I'm sort of a massive advocate of, like, putting straps on and really sort of using your arms as hooks, and just trying to make sure that you really think about pulling through the back as opposed to just kind of any old way pulling the weight. For me, that was a big thing in developing my back.
And what do you like to start with on that pull day? Do you start with pull downs or pull ups first?
I will start with generally like a T-bar row. I quite like, starting with something like that. For me, I have done in the past like a barbell row, but I just find I get on better with the T-bar. We've got an attachment in the gym that's a little bit wider, so it means I can pull it up a little bit more sort of through, and the weight's not sort of stabbing me in the chest. So that's been something that I've implemented and really kind of like using. But I will load the spinal erectors a little bit on that day through that T-bar exercise. Everything else is pretty much chest supported row-wise on that day. That's my first exercise after I've warmed up with the cable pull downs.
Oh, okay. So you do pullovers,
yeah.
And you still going to failure with those, or is it just a warm up?
It's just a warm up, just to kind of get my back engaged, put a bit of blood in my lats, and make sure I can actually feel the muscles contracting. The first proper working set of the day will be a T-bar row set generally. If I can't get onto it though, I'll switch it around. But if I walk into an empty gym, that's where I'll start.
That's not chest supported, that T-bar row.
No, not the first one. Yeah, that's kind of pulling a little bit more into the hip. And then I'll do a chest supported high row, working more along the top line of my back, trying to focus on that, and like rear delts as well.
Okay. And then after those 2 rowing exercises, what do you do after that? Do you go into the biceps?
No, there's a close grip pull down. And again, that's something that I started to implement, using a close grip pull down instead of wide grip. It's one of those things that you hear when you first walk into the gym, that this is going to grow you a wide grip for wide back, and then a close grip for all the muscles in the middle. And it's like, it doesn't work like that at all. I haven't done a wide grip lat pull down for a while. I'll do a pull up with a wider grip, but if I'm using a pull down, I'll try and get a close grip and really focus on squeezing through. And then a front pull down machine as well. I like to do a single arm front pull down. What I've really gotten into is trying to move my body so that that comes as close to me as possible, even twisting away from the machine so it's coming across around my rib cage. And I find that if you really let that stretch at the top, that's really nice to get through into the whole lat. And I'll do a couple of hard sets on each side on that.
And then you go into the biceps.
Just before that, one more dumbbell pullover. So I like that again at the end of the training session, just to really stretch out. And I'll only do like a partial rep, so I'm not even lifting the weight above my head. Just keep the lat sort of stretched at the bottom, and then just kind of pull through it. But just a set or 2 on that. Usually I think just 1 set. It's not like I'm really pushing the weight on it or anything like that.
Gotcha. On the leg day, you also, correct me if I'm wrong though, but you also do a pre-fatigue, right? Where you hit the leg extensions before the squats, or do you not doing that anymore?
So again, that was something that I played with, and I'll change things around and I'll go, right, squats weren't going so well. So how can I make it that I'm not challenging my lower back quite as much, or is there a way that I can do this? And I played around with that. I went back to just doing the squats first. So I'll do a heavy set of barbell squats at the start of the session. I really enjoy squatting. I really enjoy barbell squats. It's not that it's the most optimal exercise in the world, and I think that you have to do it, because I think there are all sorts of different ways you can build a good set of legs. But I think for me, it works. It's an exercise that I enjoy doing. I've modified my technique so that I'm getting it and making sure that I'm maximizing the impact that it has on my quads. And I'm going to start building up the weight again on that. But I will do another squat exercise. So I'm doing the pendulum squat because our gym got one a year ago. So I've started to implement that, but that will be my secondary squat exercise. So I'll do a barbell squat heavy set to start with. I'll then do RDLs and a little bit of like single leg press and stuff like that. And then at the end of the workout, I'll do a couple of sets on the pendulum squat that are lighter and more sort of targeted towards burning out and finishing off the quads. So it's finding what I enjoy.
And the leg extensions, where do you slide those in? Or you're not doing those right now?
Yeah, I'll put them in. They'll go just before the pendulum squats. So again, that's kind of my pre-fatigue for those.
Yeah.
I always do those single leg. I try and do a lot of my leg stuff single leg because I had the ACL injury, to try and make sure that I get rid of any imbalance with sort of the size of my legs, because I do have one leg that's slightly bigger than the other and slightly stronger than the other. So it's trying to manage that. So for me, that's why my leg training might look slightly different to someone else's, because of the injuries that I've got or had.
And that's also an advantage, switching from the flat barbell bench to the dumbbells as well, right? So each arm can kind of do its own thing and move independently, right?
Exactly, yeah. I found it more comfortable with obviously my shoulder joint, but also, yeah, that's it. It's challenging both sides unilaterally, and you can make sure that you haven't got a weak link kind of in your physique. If you notice that, I don't know, one delt is bigger than the other, or, you know, you've got an imbalance from left to right, I think, yeah, switching to single side or single arm, single leg, single whatever, and focusing on doing both sides and making sure that they are both even in strength and that you're not cheating it by just pushing through one side more than the other. That's a really good way of modifying your program, sort those imbalances.
And with the rep ranges, are you doing pretty much similar rep ranges between all the days? Like, I know some people have a heavier day and then a lighter day, but you're not doing that, right?
In the session, I'll do lower rep ranges and I'll do higher. So I will have exercises. Generally, I'll start with the lower rep ranges and then I'll work towards higher, but it does depend on the exercise. But like a leg extension, I'm not going to do a low rep range. For me, it's about contracting and squeezing at the top. But if I'm talking a barbell squat, then I'm going to keep that relatively low and try and put a little bit more load through.